Well, the cast is set for the finals and the battle for third matches in the Spikers Turf Open Conference. Now, what will be the keys to winning for the remaining teams in men's volleyball? Well, let's find out from Spikers Turf anchor and analyst tandem. Grabe talaga itong dalawa. Miguel and Gia de Guzman, it's an honor to have you both here. Matching pa. According to them, allegedly, di daw planado.
Unplanned matches daw.
Oo, my God. Ba't hindi tayo nag-match?
I guess it's just meant to be, bro.
Oo, sila meant to be, tayo hindi.
Alright, let's start it off. Before we go to the finals and the championship match, let's start it off with the battle for third here.
Yeah.
What should Navy and VNS do to secure the bronze? Let's start with Gia.
Well, for Navy, I think one of the problems in their team that they acknowledged back in the preliminaries was they were making a lot of unforced errors that cost them sets, that might have cost them games also. So, but we know them as a very consistent team when it comes to reception, to net defense, and also to offense. It's just, it makes them harder to set up, just like any volleyball team. It's much harder to set up if you throw your own momentum and if you don't have the reception to start off your plays. For VNS naman, they know they're going up against a strong blocking team. The thing with Navy is they've made it hard for teams to score because of their net defense. So VNS will have to find ways to work around and to make deceptions to make it harder for Navy to contain their offense.
Miguel, do you disagree?
I somehow agree and disagree in a way. I'm not allowed to disagree with
Question, Pawa. Yeah, question was very tricky.
Yeah, nga We're only ask our hard questions here. No, but pero seryoso, I actually had the chance to cover that game in the semifinals between Navy and VNS, and it was closer than the final score reflected. What do you make of the matchup na to?
I think this will be a very good matchup. Both teams have their go-to guys. VNS has San Andres, and then the Navy has Jao Umandal. Now, it will be boiled down to how their supporting cast will step up. It's the consistency that all the other players in their team will have that will spell the difference for both of these teams.
Nag-agree yata si Gia dun eh. Alright, sige.
Alright, so Gia, let's move on to the finals matchup between Signal and NU Santa Elena. What are your thoughts on these teams? Not just, the games that they had, but also their performance the whole conference.
Well, both teams are very strong and very well balanced when it comes to offense. And as a setter, seeing the kind of options their setters have when it comes to their playmaking and their offense, mahirap talaga basahin both teams. And it shows especially in their matchup na both teams have beat each other na. So it will be interesting how, they'll step it up a notch going into the finals.
Yeah, and I think if for those who have been following Spikers Turf natin dito, I don't think it's a surprise that these are the two teams that actually made it to the finals. What's your take on this?
My take on this is it's gonna boil down on who wants it more. Both of them are really matched up together in all positions. Their setters, their middle blockers, wing spikers, and their libero. So, and in the previous games that they've had, both teams have one win and one loss against each other. So I'm sure the veteran presence of the Signal team, hindi yan magpapatalo sa NU. But then, the passion and the work that these NU Santa Elena Nationals have put into will give them a good chance against the Signal as well, even if they're the defending champions.
It's interesting kasi when you look at these two teams, they've already beaten each other, and they've already lost to each other, so they know that anything can happen in that series in particular. So we actually asked you both for key players for all four teams. Let's go first to the finals matchup. Kasi pareho yung sinagot nyo dito.
Hindi lang sila matchy sa outfit, but also with their picks with the players.
Oo. So, Gia, start out with you first, or at least your reason. So, you picked out si Manuel Sumangid III and si Jan Mariano Sumangi. Why them in particular? With all of the star names that we could look at in both NU and in Signal, why do you pick them?
Well, both teams are very star-studded, like you mentioned, and we both agree that Signal and NU are matched up when it comes to this spiking department, the blocking department, and everything else, even the setting department. So, I think most of their games, nahirapan lang sila pagka nawalan sila ng reception talaga. And, mahirap kasi talaga mag-set up as a setter. As much as, you have all the spikers in your arsenal, everything starts from the first ball. So we chose the two liberos because they will not only step up their own defense, they will have to lead the defense of their own teams going into the finals.
So, of course, you agreed. I'm going to assume that's also your reason, okay? Pero let's move on to the next one. And let's start off with Miguel's picks first because I want to see why Gia disagrees.
Okay.
Pero yung mga picks mo
Let's take
muna.
a look at that one. Okay. So for your picks, Miguel, for the Navy and VNS matchup, you have Joven De La Vega and Ish Polvorosa for VNS.
Yes, okay. I chose Joven for Navy because in the middle of the season, he got into an injury that prevented him from giving the same numbers, the same output that he used to have or he used to produce for Navy. And going up against a VNS team that has a player who can do it both on offense and defense, it's very important for them to have a second guy who's going to step up, like I mentioned, to help Jao Umandal and Dolor and the likes. Kasanya, to have more options that VNS has to look out for, it's going to be very important in their matchup against each other.
Gia, you picked EJ Casanya and Yong Mendoza, so bakit siya mali?
Actually, I found it very interesting that Miguel chose a setter
Yeah.
for VNS, and then I chose a setter naman for Navy. I chose Casanya because we could see that all throughout the preliminaries, he did a very good job distributing the ball. And even though he has Umandal, who we know is a very high efficient spiker, it's not always the case that he's the number one go-to talaga of Navy. There are sets na si Dolor, there are sets na other spikers are activated. So I have to give it to Casanya na he knows when to give the ball to which spiker at the right time. And that's not the easiest thing to do. But we also have to credit also the reception, the steady reception of Navy. Plus points na rin for him because he's a very offensive-minded setter. So he's also a threat at the net. For VNS naman, I chose Mendoza. Because like his reason naman for Navy, my reason for Mendoza is Barbie is actually a marked man talaga for VNS in terms of offense and defense. So to lighten her load, talagang kailangan mag-step up si Mendoza.
Yeah.
Also to increase yung options ni Ish when it comes to playmaking.
Siyempre, kasi apart from Barbie, also have Montemayor. So
Right.
if you have a Yong Mendoza coming out and performing well also, another weapon there for VNS.